He's been absent. He's been, it'll be 37 months that he's been in office. He has not held a single meeting for his constituency.
So you think the Democratic Party cares about Black people? Believe it or not, Rex, I think that tweet is part of the problem. Do you feel like we could have addressed this homeless issue much sooner? You have to speak a word, make it a good one.
Okay, let's go.
Welcome back to The Word. I'm Jackie Ray. I am excited for my guest today. You guys know her because I've had her on the show before. She prefers to be called an advocate, but sometimes her advocation becomes activism. So Jerlene Tatum is joining me today. We're going to talk about a move that she's making to kind of shake things up a little bit. We're going to talk about that. But first, I want to definitely shout out our newest premium members. First, I want to shout out Richard Vieira and our newest member, Jerlene Tatum. Shout out. Thank you guys so much for supporting us. We cannot do the work that we do without your support. But Jerlene, what made you decide to become a premium member?
Well, I sense that change is happening. And I've been very critical of Long Beach Post for years. And I've noticed some changes. And also, I remember when the Post was originally founded and Sean Lamaki was one of the owners. And few people know that I actually, for a very short time, was one of the writers. So,
I did not know that.
Yeah.
You learn something every day.
Yeah. So I think it's important to support independent media. Mm-hmm. And so I'm doing my part.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And you. I have to be honest. It's you.
I try my very best to be a tool for the community to shine light on stories that typically are not talked about. I do my very, very best. And I got to shout you guys out because I feel like half the city has my phone number now, and I'm not mad at that. I appreciate you guys calling me and keeping me abreast of things that are going on in the community. But with that said, I want to dive right into what you are here to talk about today, because to me, this is a very big deal. You and I feel like talk every single week, at least a couple of times. Your eyes are always wide open. If you guys follow her on her social media, she often goes live about things that are happening in the community that could be detrimental to the community. That's you advocating for the community, to open people's eyes, to let people know, hey, this is something we need to be aware of, and potentially this is something we need to have the city or law enforcement or other agencies address. So you're definitely a wealth of information when it comes to making sure the community is informed about what's going on in their community. But now you're taking an extra step and you're deciding to run for Long Beach Unified School Board District 2. Tell me what prompted when did you wake up one day and say, you know what, this is something that I have to do?
Wow. For years, it had been kind of discussed amongst people that support me or just in community. And I was like, yeah, one day I'll do it. And then I was like, nah, not going to do it. And there began to be, just in the last year, rumors that I was going to run. And I was living life. Like, I'm living life. I'm like, no, not doing that. And it literally was. I woke up one morning and I said, you know what? No, I'm going to do this. And the reason why is because I regularly attend school board meetings. I'm out there in the community. I'm connecting with people. And just tired of seeing our community neglected as it relates to our young people. And so it was really like I woke up and I said, Jerlene, it's time to level up. And running for office is leveling up.
Right. Is it scary?
It is, because I am, and the part that scares me is that feeling that I may lose my voice. Not that I'm going to gain a stronger voice, but that I'm going to lose my voice, because I've already, just in campaigning, people want to put restrictions on my voice. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be even worse when I become a school board member.
That's always my question when I see people who are advocates or activists go into politics in any way, because it's kind of like when you're an independent journalist, you can cover whatever you want, whenever you want. But the second you work for an entity, you're immediately restricted in some way. That's just the nature of the game. So I've always wondered, how have you thought about how you will balance both? Because I don't see you all of a sudden silencing or closing your eyes to what's going on in the community.
I'm learning that right now, how to balance. One, with running a campaign, there are some guidelines, right? And a lot of those guidelines in a campaign are restricted to finances. So because of that, you have to the campaign finance, you have to clearly state that you're a candidate in either in your verbiage, like my actual committee name is Tatum for School Board 2024.
Okay.
So either I have to have that everywhere or I have to have an PPC number posted. And so what I've done to continue to be able to do my voice, I've separated the two where I am when I'm campaigning on a campaign, separate social media campaign page that has that information listed, I'm campaigning.
Okay.
On my personal, I talk about me in the third person as a candidate.
Tricky.
Yeah,
I
it
like
is.
that.
Now, and I know people are like, well, they're campaigning, but when you look at people who are currently in office, they do what I call passive campaigning. They utilize city funds or organizational funds to show up at these different events under the auspices that they are representing the community when really they're actually passive campaigning.
Right.
So it's pretty much the same thing. Yet what I do in community, I keep telling people, this is what I do in community. I'm going to do this whether I'm campaigning or not. This is what I've always done. And I'm not looking for opportunities to go campaign in community. I'm actually out there advocating. And right away, that's some criticism that I've already received. Oh, well, she's just doing that because, she wants to run for school board. No, been doing that. And some of the situations I've placed myself in, I'm like, that would be foolish of me to even put myself in harm's way to run for office. That doesn't make any sense. No, I'm out here because I care about my community.
What have you seen? Usually when people run for office, it's because they've seen something that they feel is going down the wrong path and they feel like they can impact it to make a change. Is that part of the reason why you're running?
Yes, for specifically just in Long Beach Unified, I've watched in the area that I have lived in that almost 20 years now. Although there has been a representative in the seat, they have not represented those that they were elected to represent. And I'm tired of that because, we think about teachers have the union, right? Classified employees, they have a union. Well, who do parents and community have? They have school board members. But if the school board members are not representing us, then we have no one.
So Erik Miller is current in that seat. Where do you think he has fallen short for students and parents?
He's been absent. He's been, it'll be 37 months that he's been in office. He has not held a single meeting for his constituency. Not a single meeting. He's shown up to some events and activities that are hosted and led by the school district, but as a school representative, not a coffee, nothing. Yet campaign season comes up, all of a sudden he's all over the place. It's like, but where have you been the last 37 months? Not a single newsletter. Campaigning starts, newsletters start coming out.
So you feel like he probably doesn't even know what you need as a parent or anyone in the community needs as a parent because he hasn't had dialogue.
That I actually addressed directly with him when there was a captive audience of specifically Black parents where he never even stepped a foot into the space. I'm like, how you gonna learn about what the needs are if you're not even in the space? You stayed outside the building the whole time. That didn't go well.
I'd imagine it didn't. But, and I shout out to Mike G. He covers our Long Beach Unified School District. But I have been in attendance to a few school board meetings. And one of the things that I have observed is that when you start talking specifically about Black students and the needs of Black students, it creates tension.
Yeah.
Are you prepared to deal with that tension if you win?
I am.
How would you deal with it?
I don't understand, and I mean, I know it's not just Long Beach Unified, right? It's national, it's the world. That when we talk about Black people, all of a sudden it's like this bad thing, but it's so acceptable to talk about everyone else, right? That is tied to people's bias. You know, that's tied to people's biases and their prejudices and white supremacist ideology. When, you know, no matter if for example, our Pacific Islander students are at the bottom of the bottom in Long Beach Unified.
In terms of like testing, grades,
Yes.
all of that.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, there is an advocate that comes out and pushes for a Pacific Islander, but I've not observed the scrutiny as far as, you know, if me say black students,
Right.
what are you saying? All students, and the reality is they're broken down in these categories. I don't even like the way things are broken down, but that's just the way it is. So if they're broken down in the categories, then we need to be able to speak to the categories, right?
Right.
Or then get rid of them.
That's fair.
And so yeah, I'm prepared. I'm prepared. And this whole idea that just because I talk about black students that I'm neglecting other students, that's just goofy.
Right. You want to tell the people about your background and explain why that's so goofy? I'm privy to that information, but I don't think the average person knows.
As far as
You personally, yeah, your background,
my
the background of your children, your personal background.
well, okay, because one thing that comes up is people like say, well, you're only for black people. Or, you know, I was accused of being anti-Latino a few weeks back, and I wanted to laugh out loud.
Sure.
But I'm like, my mother's Mexican, so that would be going against my DNA, first of all, which
Right.
no, you
Right.
know. But if you look at where my advocacy has fallen or even my activism, it has been standing for young people that don't look like me. And it's specifically in the Latino community. And I've gotten pushback from black people. Well, why are you out on Front Street for them? And then get pushback from Latino community. Well, why are you doing that? Because their ethnic makeup doesn't matter to me. They're children. They're human. And no matter what, I may talk about black students in a category or Latino students or Pacific Island students or white students. It doesn't matter. They're human beings. They're children. They're students. And that's where that's my center. And I'm gonna stay there.
And how many children do you have?
I have 4.
And where are they as far as the schooling system?
I have 2 adult children, a 22-year-old and an 18-year-old.
Okay.
And then I have a 15-year-old high schooler that is at my favorite Long Beach high school, Milliken. That's because I graduated from there.
Biased, but that's okay.
It's not in my area, but it's still my favorite high school. And then I have a 4th grader, a 9-year-old 4th grader that's my boss.
Oh, yes, I can tell.
Yeah, my boss.
Very astute. I've had the privilege of meeting her. She's in the room with us today, and she's looking at me like, stay in your lane. And I shall. So you are very invested because you have children. And I think that's important to know that you have children. Your ethnic makeup is diverse. Your thought process, if you really follow you on social media, your thought process is also very diverse.
Well, yes, because I mean, we live in a community. Like, for example, if you ask me what's my favorite food, I'm gonna say Filipino food. You know,
Right.
Because that's my favorite food, and I was immersed in the Filipino community as a young person. So you know, I eat with my fingers,
Right.
and I will throw down on some lumpia in a minute. You know, I live in a community that has changed over the years, and then even my family background. My family background is every ethnic makeup that you can think of. You know, and so again, for me, it's like where we rooted as humans. But also as far as advocating, I was advocating for public school for what they call equity now, but I was advocating for equity in public schools when my kids weren't even school age.
Right.
Because I understood the value of education in my community to young people.
So now, what kind of support have you received?
I've received tons of support from the people that live in my community.
That's great.
Parents, business owners, people that I've met in the park just through some of, you know, being present. There's some political folks that support me, yet I'm considered anti-establishment, which whatever that means. So there's people that don't support me because I'm not with the status quo.
With the opposition, have they been very vocal? Have you heard any sort of strong negative opinions about you running?
Oh, yeah. Let's see, that I've created a lot of enemies. And I'm like, I have?
How have you created these enemies?
I speaking truth to power? I mean, I've not personally caused harm to anyone. I've called for people to be accountable on all levels of government, from CBO leadership, from people who have, when I say appointed, elected, selected leadership. I call for accountability. And, if them being called to be accountable makes me an enemy, then okay. But my thing is, where are they?
Right.
Because if I can't see you and I don't know that you're an enemy, are you really an enemy? And then I was thinking, well, maybe I'm an enemy to them.
So let's talk about accountability a little bit, because like you said, for 37 months, Erik Miller has, as you say, has not reached out to the community. Have you reached out to him and told him, hey, this is important for your position to really speak to your constituents?
I face to face expressed my discontent.
And how did that conversation go?
Oh, it didn't go well. I mean, it was very brief. It was very brief. It was the response was, "I'm sorry you feel that way." What came after that was, yeah.
We'll leave that there. And do you know any other people in the community that have reached out with the same concerns? And do you know how they were?
I know that people I've learned in the last couple months, the amount of people who have emailed and have never received communication back. And something that I've also done, I go to school board meetings. So, I mean, if you want to address the board, you go to school board meetings, no response, and at one time I did have direct access to several of the school board members where I could, call or whatever. Politics all of a sudden came into play, especially in the last election, which was crazy. It's like, why are we allowing this to infiltrate our education process? But when those politics came into place, the access that I had to certain board members, it ended. And that's when I was like, our school board is more political and concerned about political shenanigans than our young people, which our young people should be political, right? We should be fighting for policies, politics, policies for our young people. And I don't see any policies. I don't see anyone advocating for policies at the state level, which school board members should be able to do, or even actually advocating for some direct change for some policies that impact our students.
And so, as you're going through this process and you can kind of see some things that you would like to change, let's just start grassroots. Jerlene wins. You are District 2 school board member. What's one of the first things you are going to try to change in that capacity?
Well, first of all, it's not
right. It's the board.
It's a board. Any decisions that are made at the board level, it impacts all students across the district, no matter the area. It's not, I'm just going to make a change that's going to impact area 2 young people. So that's first of all. Safety. Safety has been an issue that I've been working on the last few years after the murder of Mona Rodriguez. And actually, I was involved in safety efforts way before that. And safety means different things to different people. That what happens when our kids to and from school? What happens when our kids are on campus? What happens to our young people when they're in the classroom, as well as educators? Are they safe as well? And I really believe that policies need to be looked at, that they are keeping young people and educators and community safe. There has been some change in that I've seen, some modifications to policy. Academic support. That's really broad. And the school district has been making efforts for academic supports, but for some reason, the district will say, we're going to do this. It's not getting down to the school site level. And I don't know, I think there's a lack of communication, or even informing parents that there's opportunities, or even the infrastructure of how to get that support. My son was having some challenges. And so I had to show up. And then even showing up, did not resolve the issue. It wasn't until he did so poorly that someone who's responsible for looking at that called and said, I'm an interventionist. Your son is on my list. Oh, I said, great. I'll meet you there tomorrow morning.
Right.
And what I did, even in that, I learned there was a disconnect between what that interventionalist was doing and the teachers. And I said, I give you permission to talk to all my son's teachers. Oh, well, we don't do that. No. I give you permission. We're going to sit here. We're going to draft out an email so that they know that there's some communication so that we're all working together as a team on this. But what I've discovered, it's not clear. I don't know if it's consistent across school sites. So I think more effort needs to be looked into the details of how those academic supports are being delivered. And then really big one, increase in school counselors.
Yes.
And I learned that out of the 84 schools, there's 120 counselors. And some of the like high schools they have what's called pathway counselors, where they're specific to a pathway. If we want our kids to have connections to the academic support, well, how do you do that? They're school counselor. But if a school counselor has a caseload of 548 students, how they gonna look at my student?
Right.
You know? And something that recently happened, my son did not connect to his counselor last year. Like I showed up, I was not in little dismissed a little bit. I let it go. This year I showed up at the school. I found out who the counselor was. Made sure my kids spoke to the counselor, walked over to the interventionalist, made sure they were all talking. But the counselor passed away a month ago. Heart attack.
I'm so sorry. That's terrible.
And what I learned from that was the amount of stress the counselors are undergoing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different time. And I remember how vital my school counselor was for me when I was in high school. And we didn't have half the everything that's going on in the world that these kids have. We weren't exposed to the toxicity on social media the way these kids are. So I definitely see your point and why a school counselor, because if it was valuable to me then when things were kind of smooth, it's definitely going to be valuable now.
The counselors, because of their caseload, and they're not able to address the whole child.
Right.
My counselor addressed the whole child. My counselor knew that my home situation was not the best. My counselor knew that I was an athlete. My counselor knew that there were certain environments that I didn't function well in, so they worked to make sure that I was in classes that were going to help me thrive and succeed. My counselor spoke directly to my coach, who had me on a pathway to college that I didn't realize that they had a pathway that I was going to college. Like I really didn't. I thought I was going to the military. And I remember when it was coming time to do the applications, I made the comment that I was going to the military. And my coach just looked at me and said, "What?" Next thing you know, I spent, I don't know, it seemed like forever to me, but months in my counselor's office with the support of my coach and some other staff members, making sure that my applications were submitted. And when I look back, I was like, oh my goodness, they had been preparing me the whole time. And dealing with my emotional baggage that I came to school with, you know. And I even remember going through the college process, walking into my counselor's office, bawling. I said, I don't want to fill out another application. She goes, one more. That happened to be the college that I went to.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I attended Whittier College, graduated from Whittier College, but that was the last application I submitted. The last. And I was accepted to USC, UCLA. I was accepted in the Cal State system. The only school I think that denied me was San Diego.
Right.
That was it.
Yeah.
Like, but everywhere else, like I had a choice.
Yeah.
When I didn't even, and what happens, I think, because our young people don't have someone working with them, because counselors don't have time. I think they're missing opportunities.
I also wanted to kind of address, though, switching gears a little bit. We've seen, and everyone that I've talked to in the community has said that I'm new to the community. This is not a new phenomenon. I'm just now witnessing it because I'm new to the community. But there seems to be tension between Black students and Latino students. Has the school board, to your knowledge, addressed that issue at all?
No.
Is that an issue that needs to be addressed?
Yes.
Okay.
I've been getting a lot of criticism for addressing it. Uh, and it was an issue when I was in high school.
Right. That's what I've been told.
It was an issue before I was in high school. And I'm like, when is it no longer going to be an issue? And what happens when we try to talk about it, people, again, want to pick sides. Oh, well, you're being anti-Latino, or you're being anti-Black. And even with the situation that's happening right now on the west side of Long Beach in Cabrillo, they don't want to talk about it. And I'm like, well, there is something that's happening in our community that we know that is part of a bigger issue in our society, where we create boundaries, right?
Right.
And I don't know if people are just too lazy or they're just uncomfortable. I don't know why people are not willing to address it. And so I shared a story many years ago. I live in a predominantly Latino neighborhood. And so my neighborhood kids at the time, they were all Latino. Like kids, Mexican kids, like really, like, And one of the kids made a comment, and he he referred to a Black woman, an N word, the N lady. And I turned around, I said, "Excuse me, what was that?" "Oh, Miss Jerlene, that was not, I wasn't talking about you." I said, "Well, I don't ever want to hear that again." "And where did you learn that?" "Oh, well, that's what my mom says."
Oof.
I said, "Well, that's not very kind." "Well, you're different, Miss Jerlene. You're different." But he couldn't explain why, but still, I'm like, I said, "Come here, come with me." And I took about 4 kids, and we walked into my house. And on the picture, there was on the wall, there was a picture of my mother. And I said, "You see that picture?" They're like, "Oh, wow, that's a pretty lady." I go, "Yeah." And they were like, "Who is she?" I was like, "That's my mom." And they were like, "Really?" But I did that because I knew I needed to connect to them even deeper, right? But it opened up a pathway for me to talk about how Black people in America and Latino people, and actually I didn't say Latino, I think then I was very specific, Mexican people, how we are very much alike, where our cultures have crossed, how the oppression that we've experienced in our communities are similar, the same, how we're colonized people, and these were young children. And now I wonder if these are things that they still know now, but I had to figure out a way to open up their minds enough to have that conversation with them.
Right.
And I don't think people are willing to do that now.
Is that something you think the school board needs to initiate? Just more conversations?
I think they need to allow, it needs to be addressed. The school sites need to have the space to do that. The school sites need to have the space to do that. And I also think that when it comes to our racial differences, our schools are 69, I think Long Beach Unified is 69% Latino. That Latino child is not going to learn how to interact with a Black person if they don't see a Black person. So when we have the conversation about we need more Black teachers, having more Black teachers is not just for Black children.
Right.
Having more Black teachers is so that the young people that encounter them can have a different perspective on Black people, because no matter what, we are in a society that is anti-Black. And I think a lot of that is built around the fact that the people don't know who we are. And I have, my support base is so diverse. And I get a lot of criticism because, "Oh, you talk too Black, Jerlene."
What does that mean?
People who don't look like me that's in my support base, they appreciate it. And they ask me questions, and they're not intimidated because they know that me talking about my cultural experience in this country does not diminish their value.
Absolutely. I think most intelligent people would know that. But moving on. So I am excited for you in taking this step. I think for me, when I first heard that you were running, that was my concern, because you are such an asset to the community. If if for no other reason than making sure people know what's going on and they can act accordingly. And I was concerned that this was going to curtail your voice.
It is a little. And I've always been very mindful, right, of everything that I've said. After I win, I don't know what my voice is going to look like. I don't know how, I don't know. And I guess I won't know till I get here or get there. The one thing that I said, I'm just going to be my authentic self in all of it. But I am very mindful and conscious of everything that I say. And I mean, even I made a comment the other day and I spoke specifically to the data of Black students. Someone asked me a question and I went to where it was easiest for me to use an example. What someone derived in the room is, oh, you can't keep talking about Black kids. I just said, okay. Yet I have a feeling that I'm going to experience more of that. Whether I'm talking about Black children or I'm talking about violence or whatever it is, there's going to be more people telling me what I can and cannot say. Yet there's an effort to try to hold me accountable for my words, but there's not an effort to hold people who are in current positions of leadership accountable for their actions or non-actions.
Right.
So that doesn't make any sense to me.
So what would you like to say to the constituents before we've got a little road before it's time to vote, but just go ahead and look right into the camera and tell Long Beach why you're running and why you would love their support.
My name is Jerlene Tatum. I am a parent, education advocate, community organizer, and I am running for the Long Beach Unified School Board, Area 2, also referred to as District 2. I am running because I believe that our students should be priority above all, above politics, above name recognition, that our children should be on the forefront of every outcome, every decision, and every expected outcome. Over the next 96 days before election date, please keep up with me. You can follow me on social media. You can find me at Jerlene for LBUSD. That's my handle for most of my social media pages. Learn about me and learn with me. Over the next few months, I'll be talking about specific things to the district that hopefully will relate and connect to you. Please share my message. And also, I invite you to take a look at the person that I'm running against. What record do they have? And do they and have they represented you? If not, I'm for you.
I love that. I appreciate you for coming on. I know this is probably scary for you, but progress usually is scary. So let's just own that. So I'm very proud of you. Again, it's Jerlene for
LBUSD.
Jerlene for LBUSD on all social media.
Yes. Website is Jerlene Tatum for LBUSD.com.
And they can support you there as well.
Yes, if you go there, you'll see my social media handles. You'll learn about who I am as well as why I'm running. And you can also find out ways to support me.
We're going to follow this campaign and other campaigns up until election time, so make sure you check in with the word. Once again, I'm Jackie Ray. Don't forget, if you're not a member already, you can do that for as little as $8.99 per month. You can support what we do as independent journalists for the Long Beach Post. You can do that by going to lbpost.com/join. Once again, I'm Jackie Ray. Thanks for tuning in. And don't forget, if you have to speak a word, make it a good one. We'll see you next time.